There's a new day dawning, the time is at hand, where the glory of the Lord will be revealed to every man. Open the door, open the door, open the door, and let the King of Glory in. Open the door, open the door, open the door, and let the King of Glory in.
All right, let the King of Glory in. Open up the door. Starts right now. So fling wide, you heavenly gates. Prepare the way of the risen Lord. The Apostle John was on the island of Patmos. He was in prison for the testimony of Jesus Christ. And he heard a sound behind him, and he said, Behold, I looked. There was a door standing open in heaven, and I heard a voice which was like a trumpet speaking with me, saying, Come up here. I will show you the things which must take place. That's what we need, my friends. We need a heavenly perspective of the things that are going on in the world around us, the things which must take place, the things that the Word of God foretold would come to pass, the things which are taking place even right now. That is what this broadcast is all about, discussing the issues of the day, discerning the times in which we live from a biblical perspective and worldview. Good day, everybody. Andy White here. What you are about to hear is the fusion of heart, mind, and soul, and I want to welcome everybody, as I always do, from all across the fruited plain and all around the spherical globe. Thanks for tuning in to this week's edition of Open Up the Doors, and it's gonna be a fired up hot one. I promise you that, folks. But hey, do me a favor. I am streaming live on my Open Up the Doors Facebook page. Go on over there, join in the conversation, do a meet and greet over there. You can find the Open Up the Doors Facebook page at facebook.com/faithfm 91.7. That's facebook.com/faithfm 91.7. If you're on Facebook, just look up Open Up the Doors in the search and you'll find it. And if you never liked the page, please like the page. You can also follow me on Truth Social Network at AJ White. It's my main social platform network these days. AJ White on Truth Social. Give me a follow. If you're not on there, get on over there. It's building up. But I want to get right to it because I really do seriously have a lot I want to get to. So I want to truncate my normal preliminaries today. One more thing, though, that's important. If you're outside of the Faith FM broadcast area, I want to encourage you to download the Faith FM app. Great resource to have. Look up Faith FM in your respective app store, whether it's the Apple or the Google Play for your particular platform. Look up Faith FM in Sag Harbor. Download the app to listen to great Christian programming here from the East End of Long Island 24/7. I am planning on going to the phones, and I will go to the phones in the second hour of today's broadcast. If you'd like to be part of the broadcast, write down the number now, 631-725-2069. 631-725-2069. All right, I'm going to hop on it because I seriously have a lot of stuff that I know even in 2 hours I wouldn't get to. Just the way I roll. But here, let me give you a little bit of a teaser, so to speak, of what's coming up. Because coming up in the broadcast in a few minutes, I'm going to be connecting the dots between several different articles and reports that have been really flooding the internet, and how the term, and the issue being Christian nationalism, and how this term Christian nationalism is being used as a smear tactic and a label in order to target Bible-believing Christians. It's a label that's being used, I believe, to set up what will become further and more aggressive persecution of true believers in this country in the days and months ahead. And that's coming up in a few minutes. But before I get to that, I want to lay out some other things first. And I want to lay out some good news as a little bit of an update from last week. On last week's broadcast, I mentioned about the Satan Con conference up in Boston, which was the largest gathering of Satanists in American history for this Satanist convention. And I mentioned in last week's broadcast that there was going to be groups of Christians going up there to pray and to witness. and, to be a light in the darkness. And there's some good news to report on that, in light of the fact that some Christian leaders were telling people not to go there. But as reported by worship leader Sean Feucht, during the opening night of SatanCon 2023, which was about a week ago, two satanic leaders led worshipers and this is all on video, in chants of Hail Satan. And they were saying, "We stand here today in defiance." Of course they do. "We stand here today in defiance of their siege and destroy their symbols of oppression," because this is what the Satanists believe they're doing. And they began ripping up pages out of the Bible as they're chanting Hail Satan. And their leader, who was a woman, was cheered on by the crowd as she shouted Hail Satan while tearing pages of the Bible and throwing them on the floor. But as this was going on, Sean Feucht at that very moment was texting out how, let me read you his text, because this, folks, this just thrills me, honestly. Sean Feucht reports, while they were ripping up pages of the Bible to kick off the largest Satan gathering ever in Boston, over 98 attendees, over 98 people, already beforehand, had surrendered their lives to Jesus. They got saved even before the thing began. Sean Feucht said they got saved from covert evangelists who had infiltrated the crowd. Church leaders, and Sean said this is verified. And that, and maybe there's even more than that. This was from last week. Maybe there was even more than that. But he reported right when the thing was kicking off, already 98 people had been saved and gave their lives to Jesus Christ at the Satan Festival. And church leaders, when they saw this tweet that Sean Feucht put out, they reached out to him and they asked him to clarify how he was able to verify the salvations mentioned in his tweet. And he replied back, "I know the team that was there in Boston." And I have no reason to doubt Sean Feucht. He's an honest, sincere, great worship leader. I have no reason to doubt his veracity on this. But he says, "I know the team that was there in Boston, and they're friends of mine. And so when I say verified, that's what I mean. This is their testimony and their report, that as the Satan thing was just kicking off, there were already 98 people saved." And Sean Feucht went on to say, "I want people to hear the good news that in the midst of the largest satanic gathering in the world, that God is still moving, amen, and that light overcomes darkness, amen, every single time." Sean Feucht continued, "I felt like it was important to share that update as viral images of people shredding the Bible were being shared around the world and around the news media as if God is scared about that." Yeah, right. Amen and amen to all of those Christian warriors who went there to be a light in the darkness. For this purpose, the Son of God was manifested, that he might destroy the works of the devil. And you are of God, little children, and have overcome them, because he who is in you, he who is in us, is greater than he who is in the world. And folks, let me tell you, it may appear on the surface at times that darkness is winning because they get all the airtime on the media. And yes, even saying that, we know in the last days, for a short time, for a short season, darkness will seem to be winning. There are indeed dark and terrible days coming. An hour of darkness is coming. But brothers and sisters, fret not and fear not. At the end of it all, we read the end of the book. At the end of it all, Satan will be defeated. And he will be crushed under our feet. And Jesus will reign in this world. But in the meantime, we are in a war, a spiritual war. Now, I want to begin connecting some other dots. And I'm going to build into something here, which is what I'm prone to do on this broadcast. But I want to begin with some other reporting on last week's Satan Fest, the other side and the conflicts that were going on. And it's funny that both of these articles I ran across were really both from liberal newspapers, very liberal newspapers out of Britain. In one article here in the Mirror, the headline was, "Neo-Nazis and Satanists clash in protest outside world's biggest SatanCon event." That was the headline in the British paper, The Mirror. And to quote from the article a little bit, fascists from a group called Patriot Front, and let me say up front, no pun intended, let me say up front, I know nothing about the Patriot Front. I didn't even bother looking them up. So I don't know if this is a smear tactic. I don't know if they really are fascists or white supremacists or a Nazi group. I don't know anything about them. I didn't want to spend the time looking up who the Patriot Front is, because that's really not my point. My point is how the media is going to connect whatever they are to actually Christians. But the article goes on to say, fascists from a group, Patriot Front, were seen clashing with Satanists in a bizarre crossover at a protest in the U.S. The confrontation broke out at a demonstration in Boston where hordes of neo-Nazis turned up to protest the SatanCon 2023 event. Bibles were reportedly burned at the event, while panel discussions from the Satanists were held on topics including reclaiming the trans body and deconstructing your religious upbringing. The large-scale gathering, however, also attracted members of the white nationalist group Patriot Front, who were furious at the mainstream event. Hold the tape. Hold the tape. Did you catch that terminology in this Mirror news article? They're calling this Satanist convention a mainstream event. Really? Really? The Mirror goes on to paint a narrative in the rest of the article of normalizing Satanism and demonizing Bible believers. Woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, who exchange darkness for light and light for darkness. But the Mirror article report goes on to say, quote, regularly misunderstood as acts of devil worship, Satanists do not worship or believe in Satan, but base the movement in rejecting religious values and questioning authority, which is basically satanic, of course. A statement, this is just so precious. This is so precious. A statement on the Satanic Temple's website reads, quote, the mission of the Satanic Temple is to encourage benevolence and empathy, so says the children of the father of lies, to reject tyrannical authority, like as in God. He's a benevolent dictator, but I won't digress. The mission of the Satanic Temple, I can't read through this without commenting on, I'm sorry. The mission of the Satanic Temple is to encourage benevolence and empathy, reject tyrannical authority, and advocate practical common sense. That's so funny. Oppose injustice and undertake noble pursuits like sacrificing children. No, that's not on there. I added that. So says the vision statement of the useful idiots for the father of lies. The Mirror goes on to say, Saturday's SatanCon gathering also attracted 100 Christians in revolt who defied orders from the city's church officials not to organize or encourage others to protest. Oh, the irony of that statement. The irony being, I thought it was a good thing to defy and reject authority according to them. So now they're impugning the Christians who, quote unquote, in their minds, defied orders from the city's church officials. A little bit of hypocrisy there, don't you think? But it's idiocy. It's just pure idiocy. Because it's idiocy on a number of levels, folks. The idiocy of this author who wrote this story in the Mirror, number one, it's the idea, because it was a Catholic bishop who advised Catholics from going and protesting. But see, these people don't realize Catholic bishops have no authority, number one, to give orders over the non-Catholic Christian community. But of course, clueless leftists are ignorant regarding such things anyway. But then there was a similar article, a similar report, and likewise leftist publication, The Daily Beast, which covered the same story. And I'm going somewhere with all of this, so hang out here, folks. But the title of the report in The Daily Beast was Masked Neo-Nazis Crash World's Largest Satanic Event. And the article goes on to state, we can now add fascists versus Satanists to this list of iconic crossovers after the white nationalist group Patriot Front showed up in Boston on Saturday to protest SatanCon 2023. You know, folks, I've often said, just because one devil is worse than the other devil doesn't make that devil a saint. I'll leave that right there. But now I want you to notice the guilt by association maneuver that the Daily Beast engages in. And this is where the dots begin to click in as I proceed with this broadcast. The Daily Beast says this, the Beelzebub blowout, at least they recognize who the central figure here is in this. The Beelzebub blowout also attracted 100 or so Christian protesters. Now here's the salient point, who were joined by the designated hate group fascist Patriot Front on Saturday afternoon. When they, the Patriot Front, arrived at the event, counter-protesters, the Satanists, chanted, Nazis go home, and they streamed the demonstration on Twitch. And this is great. Not great. This is the guilt by association comparison here. Other Christian demonstrators held signs claiming Satan has no rights. Well, that's actually true. Satan has no rights. No one has a right to do what is evil. No one has a right to do what is wrong. But I digress. But again, this reporter makes the same dumb argument that the reporter in the Mirror did. Because then he says, these protesters seem to have committed their own transgression in the process, violating an explicit order from Archbishop of Boston for them not to organize or encourage others to go to the event to protest and to stick to prayer instead. A little bit snarky there, I bet. See, this is the convoluted and twisted logic of godless devil worshippers. Folks, I want to tell you something. Satan makes people into fools, and sin makes people stupid. But both the Mirror and the Daily Beast are rabidly leftist publications, as I've said. So it's both par for the course and essentially irrelevant, really, what their characterization of Christians is. But having said all that, here's where I'm going with this. I want to show you and make you aware of the dangerously bigger picture of where all this is actually going. And these things might not seem connected at first, but they very much are. Notice the underlying narratives in the reporting. They were normalizing Satanism as mainstream, demonizing Christians by associating them directly or by way of inference with the neo-Nazis. Folks, I want to tell you something. Ideas have consequences. And if the idea that Bible-believing Christians are Nazis actually takes root in the pop culture, I guarantee you that will not go well for us. And from the looks of things, we are already well on our way. It is becoming quite evident to me that what I have seen bubbling upwards in the last few years is now boiling over the top of the cauldron. And like a simmering witch's brew, the satanic left is stirring the pot of its newest contrived concoction of lies, deceit, and sorcery meant to hypnotize the masses into the miasma of irrational fear and terror of its newest boogeyman. And what exactly is this boogeyman that's hiding in the closet, ready to pounce and tear apart and destroy our democracy? Well, they're calling it Christian nationalism. And like the imaginary boogeyman, it doesn't really exist. At least not in the way the imaginary monster in their minds exists and is being depicted as. But I'm going to get into that in a moment when I come back. I'm going to take a break right now, grab a cup of coffee, take a sip of coffee, and I'm going to develop this theme right after this tune.
Man,
Third day.
child of an angel.
This is who I am.
Brother of a wild one.
Third day. This is who I am. Welcome back, Andy White here. You are listening to Open Up the Doors here on Faith FM, WEGB 90.7 and 93.3 in Epic, WEGQ 91.7 in Quad, here on the east end of Long Island, a lighthouse beaming the light of truth and reality to those groping around in the dark miasma of an alternative universe. I began, getting back on topic, I began to talk about this issue of Christian nationalism almost a year ago. So before I update the issue with some fresh reports, I want to refresh some of that because it was almost a year ago. Because as I said in the previous block before the break, the left's new boogeyman is this thing called Christian nationalism. Now, someone asked me just yesterday, what is the definition of a Christian nationalist? Well, my answer to them was there really isn't one. And I don't want to spend a lot of time defining what it is, because quite honestly, it's a very nebulous term. And depending on a person's worldview, it will be defined differently by different people, and especially when it comes to the left. In fact, it doesn't matter what the actual definition would be anyway, even if it had one, because the left is always redefining terms according to what they want things to mean, according to their ideology and agenda, just like they redefined marriage, just like they redefined gender, just like they can't define exactly what a woman is. See, actual definitions don't mean anything or even matter to the left. They only use the terms the way they want to use them for their own narratives and agendas. So I'm going to address this issue from their perspective of how they want to use it. No matter what your definition is, no matter how you want to define it, no matter if it means good things in your mind, and it might to many of us, but I want to look at it from the way the term is being used and the way they want to use it. Now, the term really came to the forefront last year when there were some major articles, both in the New Yorker magazine and also CNN published two major articles last summer. The CNN article was titled, "An Imposter Christianity is Threatening American Democracy." And the New Yorker magazine, which is run by the New York Times, had also a concurrent article saying, "White Christian nationalism is a fundamental threat to democracy." To quote something, just a little quote, and both of these articles were very long. I'm not going to get into them. I actually covered these last year, but just by way of refresher. Quoting from the New Yorker article from last August or July, whatever it was, it says, "An ideology is on the march. Traces of it are detectable in a racist massacre in Buffalo." Never mind, the guy was really leftist, but again, I will not digress. "In Tucker Carlson's monologues," oh, they're rejoicing the past week or two about this. They feel like they won with Tucker. But this ideology that's on the march, it's detectable in Tucker Carlson's monologues, in Marjorie Taylor Greene's public comments. And you'll find it again in the right's anti-abortion rhetoric, or in the right's response to the school shooting in Uvalde, Texas, which shows They just want to embrace God and guns with an ever greater conviction. You can see all the leftist canards and leftist issues being poured out from this leftist New York Times article. But again, this according to this article, because where did it come from? This ideology has a name, argue sociologists Samuel Perry of the University of Oklahoma and Philip S. Gorski of Yale University. Perry and Gorski call it white Christian nationalism. Ooh, sounds scary. And in their minds it is, actually. And in their view, it represents a pressing threat to democracy. Let me mention some important facts regarding the experts, quote unquote, that both the Times and CNN confer upon, quote, numerous times in all of their articles, especially these two that I'm mentioning. Philip Gorski is a sociologist at Yale University. He is neither an historian nor a theologian. Yet CNN references him 12 times in their particular article. Christian Dumez is a professor of history and gender studies at Calvin University. At least she teaches at an ostensibly Christian university, and she's referenced numerous times in the CNN article as well. But here's a little bit of their background. You need to know the sources. You need to know these Christian experts, according to CNN and the New York Times. Christian Cobus Dumas is the author of a book titled Jesus and John Wayne, How White Evangelicals Corrupted a Faith and Fractured a Nation. Think she's a little biased? You think she's a little fair and balanced? She also, this Christian Dumez, she also wrote a book in deep admiration and in glowing terms about, you ready for this? The faith of Hillary Clinton. Yeah, folks, you could just tell where this person's coming from. This expert, Christian Dumas, is quoted numerous times in the CNN diatribe on Christian nationalism. But she is herself a leftist, progressive Christian who, even though she's a professor at Calvin University, they want to banty that about. She's a professor at Calvin University. Yet, she openly opposes and speaks out against the university's stand on traditional sexuality. So again, she's a leftist. Let's call it what it is. Christian expert. She's an apostate. So these are the types of Christian experts that the media turns to. And as I so often mention, and quoting Jesus, they are blind leaders of the blind falling into their own self-made ditches. Folks, here's what my point today with this broadcast is. You need to understand that when these leftists cry that these Christian nationalists are a threat to democracy, what they really mean is that we are a threat to their radical and godless agendas. We are a threat to their power. And for quite some time now, I have been sounding the alarm that faithful Bible-believing Christians would come under attack and persecution in this country, not only from non-Christians and unbelievers, not only from secularists and atheists, but from within the ranks of so-called mainstream institutional Christianity itself. So now, here we go, from a recent article from just this past week. In several publications, I'm going to quote a little bit from the Raw Story. The Raw Story article was really reporting on what the Guardian was reporting out of Britain. And again, the Guardian is a far-left paper, but the way they headlined it in the rawstory.com, the headline was Far-Right Pastors for Trump. Now listen to this, and this is the point I'm getting at. Far-right Pastors for Trump is trashed by evangelical leaders for flirting with Christian nationalism. Pro-Trump pastors are being rebuked for, quote-unquote, an overt embrace of white Christian nationalism. So wrote The Guardian, again, which is a far-left British publication. But the article goes on to say allies of former President Donald Trump, including Roger Stone, who has recently become a Christian, by the way. I'm just adding that in. But again, they're going to question his sincerity. That's what the world does. But allies of former President Donald Trump, including Roger Stone and Michael Flynn, they are backing a far-right Christian group, Pastors for Trump, designed to keep evangelicals in the former president's camp for the 2024 election. In other words, they're involved in political activism, which is perfectly legitimate and legal in our country. But I'll get to that in a moment. But more mainstream Christian denominations, the real Christians, are standing up and they're fighting back against these far-right radicals, Pastors for Trump, reported The Guardian. The group, Pastors for Trump, is drawing sharp rebukes from mainstream Christian leaders for being extremist, distorting Christian teachings, and endangering American democracy, there's that term again, by fueling the spread of Christian nationalism, reports Peter Stone from The Guardian. Peter Stone then goes on to caricature the founder of this group, Pastors for Trump, Jackson Laymeyer, Jackson LeMayer, I guess is how he pronounces his name. Anyway, he caricatures. I can't get that word out. He goes on to write, LeMayer described the genesis of Pastors for Trump in dark and apocalyptic rhetoric that has echoes of Trump's own bombast. I'm stumbling over my words because I got so much I want to get through. But quoting Pastor LeMayer, we're going down a very evil path in this country, the pastor said, and he's right. Our economy is being destroyed. It's China, the deep state, and globalists. China interfered in our 2020 elections, he added. That may be true, it may not be true, but we are entitled to our opinions. And actually, it is a little bit true. But this is what he says. This is biblical what's going on. This is a spiritual battle. But then the Guardian report says other Christian groups, though, are not on board with the political message of this project. Hold it. Hold it. Here's a point I want to bring out. Why is it okay for Joe Biden to say he and the Democrats are fighting for the soul of America, but it's not okay for a Christian pastor to say this is a spiritual battle? I'm just asking the question. The article then echoes again over and over the rebukes from the so-called Christian experts, quoting the guy who runs the Sojourners magazine. The Sojourners magazine, by the way, is it's a leftist Christian socialist organization, the Sojourners. But this is what Adam Russell Taylor from the Sojourners said about these Christian nationalists. This kind of overt embrace of white Christian nationalism continues to pose a growing threat to the witness of the church and the health of our democracy. This pastor, he's referring to Jackson LeMayer, this pastor and this effort are trying to impose a Christian theocracy. It's not true. It's just another canard, but this is what they're promulgating. He goes on to say, it's imperative that Christian leaders of all backgrounds, including conservative ones, speak out about this effort as a threat to our democracy and to the church. Again, said Adam Russell Taylor. Amanda Tyler of the Baptist Joint Committee for Religious Liberty. Sounds like a great organization. It's not. It's a leftist, apostate, progressive organization under the banner of being Baptist. And I read a lot about this Amanda Tyler last night. I could probably do a whole broadcast on Amanda Tyler. I won't, but I could. Amanda Tyler of the Baptist Joint Committee for Religious Liberty agreed. No kidding, she agreed. She's just another progressive Christian. Of course she's going to agree with the Sojourners. She said this. Oh, this is rich. This is rich. For years, Trump has tried to co-opt religious leaders to serve his campaign. Tragically, far too many pastors have confused political power with religious authority and have thrown their lot in with Trump, no matter the cost to their ministry. Again, stop the tape, as Rush used to say. Stop the tape. Stop the tape. Hey, Amanda. Hey, Miss Tyler, have you never heard of Jesse Jackson, or Al Sharpton, or Louis Farrakhan, or Jeremiah Wright, or who's that apostate that's in Congress right now? Oh yeah, Raphael Warnock. Warnock. The raging hypocrisy is mind-blowing. You see, and here's the thing, folks. For the religious left, they're allowed to be involved in the political process. But you're not. No. The Christian right, they're not allowed. Amanda Tyler goes on to say, Pastors for Trump is the next step in this unholy alliance, mixing, there's the boogeyman, Christian nationalism with Christianity. Remember, my friends, it was the actual Nazis. This is where I'm going with all of this. This is my warning. This is my forewarning. Because you need to remember and bear it in mind. It was the actual Nazis who were demonizing and blaming the Jews for Germany's problems long before the Holocaust began. The rulers of the darkness of this age want to attack our faith in biblical precepts and assign a false label to it. If you are a Christian who is patriotic and loves your country, if you believe this nation was founded upon Judeo-Christian values and biblical principles, if you believe God's moral laws do not change with the times, then you are a racist, misogynist, anti-trans, homophobe, white Christian nationalist, even if you're not white. And that's a fact. The labeling of Christian nationalism is nothing more than a purposely contrived smear tactic. It's a fake political construct meant to paint with a broad brush and label and smear true believers who are nothing more than American patriots and Bible-believing Christians of faith. Normal, everyday Christian Americans. Folks, Christian nationalism is the canard that the left and the media will use and are using to smear and bludgeon Bible-believing Christians who dare to get involved in the political process and who dare to voice their views and beliefs in the public square regarding the moral and political direction of this nation. And they want to smear and shame Bible-believing Christians into hiding. And they also want to create division amongst our ranks. And they do that. They're pretty good at that. But I want you to understand what it is they're doing. I want you to be aware of it and recognize it in order to call it out when you are confronted with it or accused of it. You're a white Christian nationalist. Well, I'm Christian. Yeah, okay. I believe in America. It's my home country. I'm patriotic. Yeah, okay. But we need to set the record straight. Because again, the way you might think of yourself as a white patriotic American or a black patriotic American or an Asian patriotic American, they want to create division within our ranks. And they want to use this label, this canard, white Christian nationalism or just Christian nationalism. They want to use that as a label to shut you up and to shut you out from the political debate. The godless, totalitarian leftists, along with their useful idiots in the apostate progressive Christian movement, are trying to label true believing Christians as Nazis by using the term nationalists. Why don't they say white Christian patriots or just Christian patriots? No, they put the word nationalist in there because they want to make that subliminal connection with the Nazi party. And the media will help them succeed with that labeling. Don't let them get away with it. Let me tell you something, my folks. Mark my words. The deeper we get into this upcoming campaign season over the next year and a half, the worse it's going to become. Mark my words. You're going to be hearing an ever-increasing railing against the threat of Christian nationalism in the next year and a half. Watch for it. It's coming. It's already begun. You'll be coming back to this broadcast in the next 18 months to see how right I was. Because this tactic being utilized, it's the same thing that the real Nazis did in Germany to label the Jews as the reason for all of Germany's problems. You can go and find them now and read these articles for yourself. They're all over the internet. Just Google Christian nationalism and see what you come up with. There are literally dozens and dozens and dozens of articles and columns railing against Christian nationalism. And when you read through some of them, your eyes will explode. The demonic lies and delusion is both palpable and dangerous. That's my point. It's dangerous. The hatred, vitriol, malevolence that is directed against Bible believers, us, you and me, it's beyond alarming. And it truly makes me wonder just what will be the breaking point in their minds that will trigger a new Kristallnacht. But this time, it'll be Christians in America. How soon will that Christian Kristallnacht come? I don't know. But be prepared for it, my friends, because I'm telling you, they are preparing for it. Stick around. I'll be right back. The fusion of heart, mind, and soul. This is Open Up the Doors with Andy White here on Faith FM, WEGB 90.7 and 93.3 in Napeague, WEGQ 91.7 in Quag. Let me just give you some program notes, folks. The first hour of this broadcast re-airs today at 3 p.m. Thursday, and also at 1 p.m. on Saturday if you'd like to catch the show again. Maybe you only caught part of it. Or the best thing to do besides that is also you could download or go back and listen to these broadcasts over on my YouTube channel as well as my Rumble channel. We upload these broadcasts after the fact. So you could have access to them as resources and to share them around. Look me up on YouTube at Andy White Open Up the Doors. Hit the little subscription button and the little notification button. You'll be notified when we upload them. It's the same as Rumble. Look me up on Rumble at AJ White 777. It's AJ White 777. Please subscribe to my Rumble channel or my YouTube channel or both as well. Again, I'll be going to the phones in a few minutes as we get into the second hour today of today's broadcast. 631-725-2069. 631-725-2069. Let me take a gander at the clock here. I got a few minutes left to get a few closing thoughts for this first hour on. I've got so much more here. Probably will carry it into the second hour, depending on the phone calls. Again, I would love to hear your thoughts, so please call in. I navigate that second hour in a very casual way. I can continue with my stream of consciousness, or I can just get to the phones, which I would prefer. Anyway, let me button this up, this first hour, a little bit here. Writing in the Federalist online blog, the Federalist is a great conservative blog, but columnist Karina Benton, she hit a home run. She had a great article on Christian nationalism and what it really is and what it really means for those of us who are Christians, in the positive of it all. But she correctly noted in regarding the media. This was a great, she really hit it out of the park. Let me quote what she wrote here. Their Pavlovian function, the media, their Pavlovian function is to condition Americans to associate the term Christian nationalist with a bunch of extremists and racists who pose a Hitler-esque threat to this country's democratic institutions, so that they, Americans, will dutifully freak out. Man, she's so right. It's right on. These articles rely on the same tactics, and it's true. I've read over a dozen of these articles, and that she's right. They all rely on the same tactics: straw man arguments that misrepresent both Christianity and nationalism, and phony attempts to depict the movement as a white, supremacy movement. She goes on to write in her article, and she just quotes from these major news sources. Quote, Headlines: Christian nationalism is an unchristian concept, opines the New York Times. The Christian right is beginning to part with democratic norms, laments NPR. Christian nationalism has a long, dark history of white supremacy and bigotry and ties to the Nazi Party, warns MSNBC. The movement uses Christian language to cloak sexism and hostility to black people and non-white immigrants in its quest to create a white Christian America, explains CNN. You know, here's the thing, folks. The bottom line is this, and we know this. We know this by the history of the media. But the godless left is going to take a small minority and handful of people who actually might fit into their narrative. There's a small minority of them that might actually be like that. But they're going to use that small minority of people to paint with a broad brush the entire Bible-believing Christian community, to label them and smear them and justify, and here's where this is going, to justify their oppression and persecution of them. Watch for it. It's coming. Have some turned American politics into an idol? Sure. But most decrying Christian nationalism really mean, how dare you oppose our demonic agenda? That's what it's about, folks. And the clash of the titans is coming up in great fashion. The whole thing is ludicrous on so many levels. It really is. It's a gross distortion and caricature of American evangelicalism put forth by their own progressive ideological biases. But again, here's the point I really want to sum up and get to in all of this, because this is really what's happening. They are setting the table for a major attack and a persecution of real Christians. Without fail, when you get right down to it, the entire Christian nationalist issue is a complete misrepresentation and caricature of who patriotic American Christians actually are. I'm out of time. I'm going to pick this up a little bit when I come back in the second hour. But in the meantime, watch. Stand fast in the faith, brothers, sisters. Be brave, be strong, and let all that you do be done in love. I'll be back. Stick around. Keep it right here on Faith FM.